Welcome to PenFed Credit Union headquarters in Tysons, Virginia. I'm Andrea McCarren, joined by my colleagues Shauna McNally and Tamara Moeller, who will be fielding your questions live, and we're getting them answered by two experts today. First, Lisa Colaianni, a donor family advocate at the Washington Regional Transplant Community. Thank you for being here. And Dr. Jen Verbesey, who is the director of the Living Donor Kidney Transplant Program at the MedStar Georgetown Transplant Institute. So much going on in the world of organ donation. We've been featuring content all week long. We want to get to your questions and dispel the myths surrounding transplantation. But let's just cut to the chase here. How many people will die? How many people will die today because they are waiting for a critical life-saving organ?
Today, Andrea, 20 people will die today. There are more than 113,000 people waiting.
That's an astonishing number, 20 people, because too many of us did not check off that box at the DMV or the MVA, depending on your area, saying they'd be willing to donate, or they didn't register to donate. Tell us how simple it is to register.
Well, it's even getting more simpler than going to the DMV or you can actually do it on an iPhone under the medical app. We're working with Android to do that as well. But the majority of the people do register at the DMVs and the MVAs. So we want to make sure that they understand what it means to be a donor. So we educate them as well, and we're here today to let others know that there's a critical need. 10 people are added, one person is added every 10 minutes to the list, and those are our brothers and sisters and moms and dads and children.
You have a very personal story, and I'm going to get to that in a moment, but first I want to turn to Dr. Jen Verbesey. Can you help us dispel the number one myth? You are a transplant surgeon, you've done this a lot. People believe, or the myth that's spread is that I don't want to donate because doctors will not take drastic measures to save me because they want to harvest my organs. What do you say to that, Dr. Jen?
Well, I would say that is completely untrue, that there is no truth in that myth whatsoever, that the transplant community has worked very hard to separate completely the people that take care of someone who comes in and is sick with the transplant department, the people that might use the organs in the future. So the people that are taking care of you really have no investment in whether your organs are used in the future. Sure, would they like to see that as an outcome eventually if they're not able to save you, but their number one goal is to save someone. So I don't think that there's any truth in that myth whatsoever, that donating organs that's the very last step in the process after every other attempt to save your life has been done. And I really, really, really don't think that people should worry about that.
So let's get the word out on that. You heard it here. That is not a consideration for people to take. I want you to give us a glimpse into your day-to-day life. You see the before and the after of transplant surgery. Give your most emphatic pitch to our live audience. Why should someone register to donate?
Well, if you're registering to donate as a deceased donor, this is after, just as I said before, this is after it has been decided that you are not going to recover. You are not going to have any kind of meaningful life. So really the only great thing that could happen at that point is that your organs go on to save someone else's life. And that's not even an exaggeration in any way. People are dying, as mentioned, from either liver disease or kidney disease, and an organ can mean the start of a brand new life for them. And I see that all the time. That's why I love doing transplant surgery. It's actually a very happy field for the most part, because people get to have a renewed lease on life. They get to start over.
If you are just joining us, I'm Andrea McCarren from PenFed Credit Union headquarters in Tysons, Virginia. We are taking your live questions from around the world about organ donation. My colleagues Shauna McNally, Tamara Moeller are curating your questions. We're going to get to some in a moment, including dispelling the myths about becoming an organ donor. We're joined by two wonderful experts, donor family advocate Lisa Colaianni and Dr. Jen Verbesey, who's the director of the Living Donor Kidney Transplant Program at MedStar Georgetown Transplant Institute. Lisa, not only are you a donor family advocate, you are a donor. Tell us about your personal story. And why did you decide? You said your husband was opposed.
Yes. Can I just first, I wanted to say one other thing for what the doctor was saying about the recipients and the benefits that they receive. The donor families who I work very closely with, they receive too.
Sure.
They receive hope and comfort in the healing that they have provided. Their loved one has died, and that could be the end of the story. But they gave another chapter, and somebody now lives. So the reason I did what I did.
Tell us what organ you donated.
It was a kidney, and it basically was because I see people waiting. I've met people waiting. I've been with families whose lives are shattered when somebody suddenly dies. I've seen people that have recovered. And I am going to live until I'm 90. So they're not going to want my organs then. So why not step forward? Why not pay it forward? I'm a pretty spiritual woman, faith-based, and it's the ultimate gift. And I have to tell you, it has brought me much more joy than I ever anticipated. And my husband, once he met my surgeon, and he was just worried more about the, not so much the donation, but the after, like the anesthesia problems. You could die because of anesthesia. He was more worried about the side effects, the risks, than he was the actual donation.
Dr. Jen, you've seen transplant surgeries, you've conducted them. What is the most important thing that you would like to impart to our audience about the impact of becoming an organ donor?
So first I want to tell you that we do always encourage living kidney donation if possible, because those kidneys tend to work faster and last longer.
Oh.
Okay, so the worst part about kidney transplant is that the kidneys don't last forever. But kidneys that come from healthy, very healthy living adults tend to last many more years. So that's really the best option for people. And I always like to tell people, I've done this for many years now, and I have never, not even one time, have I ever had a donor regret in any way, shape, or form donation. And just as she was saying, it seems to bring people incredible happiness, and just they feel that they've really done something great to be able to donate to someone else.
So there's no preponderance of health issues for the living donor afterwards?
So, Lori, lucky now we have a lot of long-term studies that look at outcomes for donors, and they're very positive. There is a very small increase in renal disease in patients that donate a kidney. All likelihood they would have gotten that anyway, and usually those people are from families where there's a lot of kidney disease in the family. So if people go through our very strong screening process and we agree that they're good to be a donor, they have a very low likelihood of ever having any problems in the future.
We want to get to your questions in just a moment, but I do have one really pressing medical question, and that is, I know certain people cannot donate blood. Can everyone donate tissue or an organ?
So it definitely depends what tissue and what organ we're talking about. But for kidneys, we do not take people that have diabetes or other diseases like that, because those diseases lead to kidney disease. So if you have diabetes, you have a high chance of having kidney disease, not a high chance, but you have a considerable chance of having kidney disease in the future, so it would probably be dangerous to take one of your kidneys. With that said, we always try to tell people, don't rule yourself out. Some people say to me, oh, I can't be donated because this happened or that happened, but let us talk to you, because you would be amazed at how many people can donate. So there's a very large percentage of people that can donate, so we always encourage people to contact us and let us talk through it before they take themselves out of the picture.
Great advice. Lisa?
Yes, and what we do is we tell individuals not to look at their present health, that just to go ahead and register, because what might be a rule out today, 3 years down the line, may not be a rule out. And it's really letting the professionals decide. Register. You might not be able to donate a kidney or lung, but like we said, we need skin, we need bone, we need heart valves. So there's a need. So just register. You feel good, you registered, and hopefully you won't be a donor anytime soon.
Thank you all for joining us. You are listening to donor family advocate Lisa Colaianni and transplant surgeon Dr. Jen Verbesey. An incredible opportunity to ask questions of the experts. I'm going to turn to my colleague Shauna McNally, who's been gathering your questions. Shauna, what's coming in?
One that just came in on Facebook from Kim. What are the age limits on donating, and are there donations of value from those over 55?
Great question from Kim. Thanks so much.
I'll tell you, for living donors, we don't accept anyone under 18 because you have to give consent. We do not have an upper age limit. And so I'm proud to say if he was watching, he would know exactly who I'm talking about. But we have I did a 77-year-old donor who was incredibly healthy. He donated to his wife. Everything went very well. He's still incredibly healthy. Now, I can't promise I can do every 77-year-old. You have to be very, very healthy. But we do not have an upper age limit. And what people should realize is if you're 70, your kidney might not be the best choice for someone who's 30, but there might be another 65-year-old out there who your kidney is going to be a tremendous gift to. So again, don't rule yourself out. And
it can't hurt to register.
Exactly. And with deceased donors, they use livers in patients that are 85. So there's really, really not an upper age limit.
Now, Lisa, you are a donor,
I am.
a living donor. Tell us about the process for you, so people who are contemplating registering or contemplating donating a kidney can hear it from somebody who experienced it. What was the surgery like? What was the recovery like? I heard something about you running a cherry blossom race.
Oh, very
afterwards.
good. Yeah, this is pretty amazing. So, when I first wanted to consider being a living donor, it was 50 or 55, and I had 3 kids in 4 years. So I was.
Wait, that was the cap?
That was the cap. So I had 3 kids of teenage years, and I couldn't do it then. So I waited till all my kids were, as I say, off the payroll, and said, okay, let me check again. And sure enough, they'd raised it, and now it has been lifted, right? And it was, you go in healthy, right? And I also had my children all naturally. That's just a blessing. I'm pretty healthy. But when I woke up, it wasn't like having a baby, but it was, I couldn't walk to my driveway when I got home, which was just 2 days later, but 5 months later, I ran the 10-miler cherry blossom. So basically, they're going to take you because you're healthy. If nothing else, think about being a donor, because they will give you the most intense physical that you will ever have. They are going to make sure you are.
Were you working at the time, Lisa?
Yes, I
Because
was working.
Did you take vacation time? Did your employer support you? How many weeks were you off? Can you tell us more about sort of the logistics?
Yeah, I was very, very lucky in that our organization, Washington Regional Transplant Community, provided me 4 weeks. That is a really wonderful gift.
Well, if your employer didn't do that, I would wonder about it.
Right.
I applaud them nonetheless.
I should see if all the organ procurement organizations do. And then I came back after 2 weeks, part-time. And there's nothing, it was like, it really was easy. And I started a chain. And so I was, let's see, how old was I at the time? This is awful. I was 55 at the time. The recipient was 67, but her son was 40. So because he was 40, he wasn't compatible to his mom. So then he donated to somebody else. So I always wanted to know, like, what did I start? 8 recipients. We took 8 off the list.
Wow.
A number of them in their 20s and 30s. Now, I'm happy that my recipient was 67 and got her kidney, but it really meant a lot that there were people out there that were young.
Wait, so you started a chain.
Yes.
You donate to a 67-year-old stranger.
Yes.
Then her son
Right.
donates to a
Right,
stranger
because
who donates.
Right, he
Just
wasn't a
all,
match.
So all about the compatibility.
Correct. So
Wow.
So I love the fact that there are so many out there. And you asked me, why should I have some, why would somebody want to do this? Is there such a need? And kidneys and livers are the only organs that living donors can give. I think it's 82% of the transplants last year were kidneys. There's an incredible need for them.
All right.
And you can.
I can see the questions flying in.
Let me add one quick thing.
Sure, please do.
Because almost all our donors now go home the next day.
Yeah. That's incredible.
And MedStar Georgetown is part of something called the Donor Shield program via the National Kidney Registry, which is an organization that makes all these big swaps. And now we are able to offer people wage reimbursement So for up to 4 weeks, we can give them up to $1,500 a week.
Wow.
And we also provide travel funds for them and a companion, up to $2,000. And so without going into all the numbers.
Is that unique to MedStar, or?
There's only a couple of centers around the country that are part of this donor shield. And at Georgetown, we happen to be one of those. We're thrilled to be one of those.
Is Donor Shield something that people can go online and look it up and see if their local hospital or transplant center offers it?
They can. It's through the National Kidney Registry.
Got it.
And it's called the Donor Shield.
I just want to jump in for a second. Great information to have. If you miss the top of this, nearly 20 people are dying every single day because they are waiting for an organ donation. You can change that. We're here to dispel any myths, to answer any questions you might have. Nearly 113,000 people in this country are waiting for a life-saving organ transplant. I can see your questions coming in. Shauna McNally, Tamara Moeller, our colleagues on PenFed Digital, fielding them. Shauna, what do you see?
One that came in earlier was, will my family incur any expenses if I am an organ donor?
Great question.
That is a really good question.
It's pretty easy to answer because all of the costs for your evaluation and surgery are paid for by the recipient's insurance. Okay?
Oh,
So the
great.
donor should not get any bills for anything that's done at the hospital.
Now that she's talking about living donation.
Living
obviously.
donation.
But if there's follow-up care, complications.
So all of the follow-up care is also covered. We see donors through 2 years after donation.
Oh, okay.
And
2 years.
if
Okay,
any-
that's a good
Yep.
safety blanket.
And if any complications do occur, which knock on wood, we have a very, very low complication rate, that if anything did happen though, it should be covered either by the recipient's insurance or again, that Donor Shield program provides funds for any complication, any kind of follow-up needed.
As
Shauna.
far as deceased donors, there is absolutely no cost for a donor or their family or the estate
Really good
after
information.
after they are declared dead.
One more that just came in from Tommy on Facebook says, what happens if I donate a kidney in my 20s or 30s, then someone in my family needs a transplant down the road and I've already given my organ?
Great
So,
question.
We have the best answer for that. Again, part of this program, it used to be that people just donated as a non-directed donor, which meant they came forward to donate their kidney, but they did not have an intended recipient. Now we have a program called the Family Voucher Program. So if someone who's in their 20s and 30s wants to donate an organ, they can do that, and they can give up to the names of 5 people from their family that should they need a kidney in the future, that someone will be able to get them.
Wow. That's
So,
a very
yeah.
good answer.
Yeah.
Now, if I needed a kidney tomorrow,
Because she
I go to the
donated.
top of the list because I donated. So we're talking family. So I because it could happen. I only have one kidney.
Right.
But
I
a
will
lot
go
of
to the top of the
people
list.
always, one of the things that people always say to me is, well, my husband doesn't want me to donate because what if my kids need a kidney in the future? Now, first of all, we try to talk about that because if your family has no family history of kidney disease, it's very unlikely that your kids are going to need one in the future. So, you can kind of do what ifs forever, but if it's a very, very low likelihood, we try to see if that's really a reasonable concern. But the second thing is now, if you want to donate, you can label them for a kidney in the future if needed. So
Now, PenFed this week has been on all of our platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We have been sharing content about organ donation. And I went ahead and logged on to donatelife.net/register to register to become a donor, even though it only took 30 seconds. And I did that even though my driver's license says I will be a heart donor. Should people do that just to be sure? I've also heard anecdotally that, say I have something catastrophic happen, I go into an OR, and my family comes in, even though my driver's license says I want to be a donor, and a family member comes in and says, no, don't donate. Who holds the power there?
It's a legally binding decision made. So if you register and you're on that registry, the DMVs dump those registrations into the National Registry. So
Even if my family is opposed.
correct.
Since I,
however,
There's always a however.
I mean, it's truly, but we also want to work with families. We don't want to do something against their, I mean, the best answer to this is to discuss with your family what you want to happen, because we are not in the business of stealing organs from people or doing anything that family doesn't want. So if a family is strongly opposed, it's going to set up, you know, and we just don't want to get in that kind of situation. The best thing is for people to share their wishes with their family so that they can feel good about making the decision and the process can go much more smoothly that way.
It's very rare that anyone is challenging their loved one's decision. And what our families tell us is that they feel it's a gift that they had made that decision. Some of them don't even know. We go in and we will say, we will show them the documentation that they were donors.
Excellent.
So they are like, oh, well, and then if they say, oh, if they haven't registered, then we talk about the type of person that they were, and they usually will say, well, he was such a loving, kind person and would give the shirt off his back. Of course he would want to be a donor.
Yeah.
And in one of the stories that we recently put together, a woman was very reluctant to donate her son's organs because she was raised under a certain faith and believed he needed all of his organs to get to heaven. What do you say to those families?
Well, I actually recently just spoke at a temple, and I also spoke at a Baptist church. So I actually researched this for both of them, and I think you would find almost all religions encourage any action to save a life. So if what you're doing is to the benefit of someone else, almost all religions will encourage their congregation to do that in any way possible.
But bottom line, please, please, please speak with your families. Talk about it, see what their wishes are, and it's as simple as getting it on your driver's license or registering at donatelife.net. Speaking of getting driver's licenses, if you go to an MVA or a DMV anywhere in the country and the person behind the counter dissuades you from becoming an organ donor, go online and listen to the facts. You both have some stories here. Tell us what just happened in Sterling, Virginia.
Well, I'm going to let her tell the story because she heard it, but unfortunately, I've heard it too many times myself.
So yeah, I was just at an appointment and I heard two people talking, and I think they found it pretty surprising that the person eavesdropping was actually a transplant surgeon.
That was meant to be, by the way.
I guess so. She was telling me that she had gone to the DMV and she said to the person behind the desk, I don't know why she did that, but she said, do you think I should register as an organ donor? And the person said, no, I wouldn't do it that way. There's other ways to do it, which I don't know what she was talking about,
Right.
but she said basically that the ambulance companies come and will fight over you in order to make you a donor, which is just like so far from reality. First of all, the ambulance companies have nothing to do with organ donation. So again, it goes back to that same myth that people should have total confidence that our first goal is to save your life and to do the best thing for you. Trust me, hospitals and doctors are mostly graded on how well they provide care.
Right.
So that doctor who's taking care of you cares about you. Organ donation is the next part of the equation. And so I just think that, hopefully we are going to be able to educate people in DMVs and places like that so that they're not providing completely false stories, and that they are encouraging people to sign up.
The license oftentimes, most times, is not even with the person as they're being brought into the hospital.
That's what we had a discussion about that. It's better to go ahead and register and get on a national registry. This is separate from I know I've registered to be a bone marrow donor.
Different.
You don't have to register separately to be a tissue donor, though, correct? No. So these are the two registries that I know of. Are we missing anything?
Well, you've got the right registries. There's a registry, registerme.org, that is affiliated with Donate Life America. We're very branded organ procurement organizations around the country. It's all about donating life, right? So all these registries dump into the same places that we as staff persons, when we are talking to a family at a hospital, have checked those.
Okay, I want to clear up more myths and answer more questions. Shauna McNally.
So a question messaged to us earlier from Jenny from San Antonio was, if a person dies at home, can their organs be used?
Wow.
So I
Good
think
question.
people would be very surprised to know that unfortunately you still have to die in a very specific way to donate your organs.
Okay.
So if you are in a car accident on the street or you're at home and you die, you actually can't donate your organs.
Okay.
So the problem is you just have to always remember that we need blood to go to these organs. We need them to be somewhat healthy before we use them. So if you die at home and there's no blood going to your kidneys for, 10 hours, then it just becomes useless. So it's mostly people that have unfortunately terrible head injuries or things like that, where they're making it to the hospital alive or semi-alive, and they're put on the machines, and the machines are keeping them alive. At some point, they may be declared brain dead, which means there's no function of their brain anymore or no blood getting to their brain. And at that point, that is actually their time of death. But at that point, there still might be blood going to the kidneys or the liver. So, without getting too complicated about it, you really have to die in a very specific way to be an organ donor.
Here's a question I've always wondered, and I've heard, again, things anecdotally. How on earth is it decided who gets an organ at what particular time? Is it that you're at the top of the list? You're not going to make it if you don't get one immediately? Is there a relative? Is there how on earth does that work?
Can I just go back to this last question
Please.
just real quickly, because she was talking about how rare it is to give organs. We don't want to forget those people that are waiting for those life-enhancing gifts, the gift of sight, cornea transplants, bones, when we have burn victims, skin. And the majority of our donors are donating tissue. And while they don't have to be in a hospital, it happens easier if it's in a hospital, but we get calls from cancer patients, hospice organizations. These people feel very strongly they're going to have an unborn child. Sometimes they know ahead of time. So they're looking ahead. There are opportunities for research and for tissue. So we want to make sure, once again, that the opportunity avails them to give these incredible gifts. And then back to the other question.
How is the donation decision made?
Well, luckily it's done in a very organized fashion nationally, and it differs a little bit. Liver, you're put on a list basically based on how sick you are. So everyone gets a score, and if you have a very high score, it means your chance of survival is very low. Without a transplant. So with liver, it is based on how sick you are. There are a number of labs and values that go into this equation. For kidney...
But there's no favoritism.
There's no celebrity status.
Right.
You read what you read online, and I just wanted to clear up that misconception.
Yes. The only thing that comes into play is that you can be multi-listed at different places.
That's fair.
Yeah. So if you...
You can't buy an organ in this country.
You cannot buy an organ. Right.
Barter, sell, or buy.
But I just want to say that for kidney, it's different. Kidney is not based on how sick you are per se. It's based on how long you've been on dialysis.
Right.
So,
and there are certain common denominators that you need to know your blood type. You need to know your blood. It's a distance now. We're doing allocating by the number of miles away. The size. You have to, a big person's not going to get a little person's organs.
Ladies, I told you time would fly. We're coming up on the 30-minute mark, and I wanted to reintroduce our guests and my colleagues. I'm Andrea McCarren with PenFed Digital. I'm joined by my colleagues, Shauna McNally, Tamara Moeller, who are curating your questions live. Expert advice, expert wisdom from Lisa Colaianni, donor family advocate at the Washington Regional Transplant Community, and Dr. Jen Verbesey, who is a kidney transplant surgeon. Why kidneys? Just curious.
Well, I really love running the Living Donor Program. I think that it's just a really amazing part of medicine in that, first of all, I get to do amazing surgeries, but I also get to meet, wonderful donors and their families. I think it's incredible to meet donors when they're thinking about doing it, which they're usually, I always tell people it would be weird if you weren't nervous, right? Some people that aren't nervous at all that I'm a little suspect of.
In fact, I have a question for you that you do a lot of public speaking, and you were saying you were at a synagogue, you're at a church. What's kind of the craziest question you've gotten, or people are afraid to ask questions?
Oh, I actually had a great question just
Please.
last time. I had a man who got a kidney from his son, and it was very successful, and he had the kidney, 20 years, let's say, but he was now getting close to 80, and he wanted to know if he was preparing for the end of his life, if he could give his kidney back to his son. which is a great question.
Right.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, but we probably won't do that.
Couldn't. Okay.
But we do have
But
where
there-
other
yes.
kidneys have been transplanted to somebody else.
Retransplanted to another person.
When it's deceased, right?
Yeah. A 20-year-old kidney and an 80-year-old
Yeah,
man, we're
right.
probably not going to. And plus, we also know that donors do fabulous with one kidney, so it really
Right.
really no necessity to doing that.
Just to be clear, to register to be a live donor is the same registration.
No.
No. Okay.
Thank you for
Glad I
thank
asked.
you for making that.
Thank
all-
you, Kelly
what-
Collis, for weighing in
Yes.
with that question,
Yes.
because I was not sure about being a live donor versus
Yeah,
a deceased
I'm sorry.
donor.
All those that I was telling you before was deceased donation.
Okay, let's be clear. Give us
living
where people
donors-
can get more information, where they can register for each.
Well, living donor is very different because it takes a real initiative on the donor's part. So we are not allowed to so if you come in as a recipient and you tell me, oh, I think my sister wants to donate, we're not going to reach out to your sister.
The sister has to reach out.
Your sister has to initiate the process. And usually it's done through the center where your recipient is. So if anyone wants to come to MedStar Georgetown, they go online, they could Google it very easily, go online and do Georgetown Kidney Donor, and you start by doing an online questionnaire. And then we call you and we schedule you to come in for an evaluation.
Okay.
The other great thing to do is if people want to be a non-directed donor, meaning I'm thinking about doing this, I don't know a recipient, but I think this sounds great, or maybe I want to do family voucher, they can go on through the National Kidney Registry. And that's a very good place also to start the process.
And tell us about the protocol for donor families to meet the recipients. We had, if you have not seen our beautiful stories on PenFed Credit Union's Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube channel, please take a look at our colleague David Hochstein. His son John was just 4 years old, received a life-saving heart transplant, and this week we shared the story of his meeting for the first time with the donor family, a little boy named Christopher Brazel. And it's so beautiful, my words can't do it justice. You're going to want to log in and see those. But please, tell us more.
Well, I've been doing this work for over a quarter of a century, and I've watched John grow up. And it's just incredible to see what that young man has accomplished. He was one of our ambassadors. So
I should add, today John is 24, incredibly healthy, doing amazingly well, and studying at Harvard Medical School to work in the pediatric transplant field. This is somebody who took that incredible gift of life and is making the most of it. And just a lovely family, and we're so proud that we heard of this story because his dad happens to be a PenFed employee, and PenFed did something incredible along the way in that this company raised the cap on insurance by an additional $1 million as John grew up and battled some other health issues.
Well, it's wonderful, and we want to thank PenFed for allowing us to be here today because we want to dispel these myths and let people know the critical need. About the communication, donor families and recipients are promised anonymity at the time of donation and transplantation, but they can meet, they can correspond if it's mutually agreed upon.
There isn't a one-year waiting
There
period?
is no, this is the unfortunate part, is there's 58 organ procurement organizations.
Okay.
I like to call ourselves a Donate Life organization.
Okay.
And different OPOs have different protocol. I'm proud to say that our protocol is there's no waiting time. I wouldn't recommend it tomorrow. We usually encourage that first piece to be where they don't know one another, there's no contact information. But I did do a woman's son donated 7 organs to 4 different people, and we had 4 separate meetings in an entire day. So Andrea, when you said you were that emotion, I watched it 4 times. And that was just 3 months, and I was very hesitant about it. I thought it was too soon, but that is not my decision. It's a decision of the parties. So I called all of them. All of them were so excited. The family was so incredibly appreciative, and they became like a unit. Some meet one time, that's it. Others romanticize about who got their loved one's organs and really don't want to meet them because they want it
that's
to be that
interesting.
strapping.
But it's a very personal choice,
Very
and both sides.
personal choice.
In this case, both families were in agreement, and I want to thank the organ donor's sister, April, who is the most wonderful woman incredibly strong, and now this incredible advocate for organ donation. And she asks a really good question. Shauna, I'm going to pass that over to you.
Are living donors offered any kind of mental health support after they donate?
I think that's a great question. After you donate, might you need, or does that fall under that 2-year organ shield, donor shield?
So every living donor, potential living donor, meets with someone who's called the independent donor advocate. So that's a person who only deals with the donor. They're
Essentially a counselor.
Exactly, but their main role is only the donor. They've never met with the recipient. So in that way, they only have the donor's best interest in mind, right? So, and that person for us is a social worker. It's not the same everywhere, but I think a social worker is the perfect person for that. Right. And she is very available after surgery. And so we are very much in contact with people. We see them at a week after to make sure if anything's going on. And in the very rare case that we've had that people have any issues, we have always been able to mobilize a lot of support for that person.
I want to jump in and thank MedStar Georgetown University Hospital for jumping on social media and following up the form you were talking about. For anyone interested in becoming a living donor, the form is right here online. But let me ask you this. Of course I'm interested in being a donor, a living donor. But if I fill out that form, that's no kind of binding commitment, time frame.
Not even close.
Okay.
So if you're interested, I always tell you to fill out the form. You're going to come in and spend the day with a bunch of lovely people, and we're going to do a full day of education.
And you will tell me which of my organs I can donate.
No, well, you come in as a kidney donor. So
Fair enough.
You're going to come in as a kidney donor. We want you to have,
There's not a lot as a living donor that you can donate.
You can donate part of your liver also.
And a lobe of your lung.
Wow. Okay. Learned something. Anything else?
So I
didn't realize.
I never thought about it, but I guess if you really want to come in and you're not sure what you want to donate, we could talk it through with you that day.
Right.
The risk factors are very different from those different organs.
That makes good sense.
And I have to say, it's like she said, she spent the day. You come in and you spend the day. That's what you do, but you have a lot of time while things are getting set up, and to consider it. Like I mentioned, that my husband was he just wasn't sure about it. They found something on one of my tests.
Wow.
And so there was spots, and they weren't sure if it was baseline or what was it. So I even got an even super duper test that they had me do. So you have a lot of time, and there's no pressure, especially if you're non-directed, to when it has to be. I got to pick my date, and I have to say it probably was a 3-month process that from start to finish by the time
I always tell a donor, I can't do it unless you show up, right? So all the control is in the donor's hand. And we are very, very careful about donor confidentiality. So if you come in and go through the whole process and we clear you, we say you're good to go, we do not tell your recipient that. Because you have the ability to say, you know what, this isn't for me up until the day we do the surgery.
Wow.
So we do not,
Do the recipients ask you, or their families, who's this coming from? Is it somebody healthy? Are they a runner? Do they ask you questions like that?
Oh, sure. They ask a lot of questions, but we're very limited.
Okay, that's fair.
But to give them, information about the health of the kidney. So
that's
in the
pretty
end,
much what they
that's
should
what
care
they really
about.
need to know, right?
Lisa, I have a real question.
They knew my
for you.
age. My
that's
center
fair.
gave them my age and sex.
So you said you've been in the industry
a
for
long
the
time.
field for 25 years. What was your tipping point? Why did you decide, I've got to donate?
Well, the need. Of
course.
I think it's a health crisis when you have that many people dying. There's a need.
20 people dying a day, 113,000 on waiting lists for organ donations, and that's just the United States.
And I'm blessed. I have 3 children off the payroll and a husband I've been married to for 38 years. And I live with miracles. We had a training Thursday night last night. We had 45 different people that came in that either were a donor family. We had 3 brothers that have received heart transplants. We said, that's who I live with. That's what you spend these days, right? So when you're blessed and you're healthy, my sister unfortunately was not healthy and she's deceased, and I am healthy, and you just want to pay it forward. It's really as simple as that. And like I said earlier, the joy that has come from it. I cannot let that car in on that highway if I don't want to. No, seriously, it's just so joyful.
All right, so the wheels are turning. Tell me about the process. So, I mean, you've told us about the process of coming in to MedStar or whatever facility and getting checked out. Once you make the decision, you go under anesthesia. How long does the surgery take? And I also have a request in that I have total donation or transplant surgery watching envy because our good friend Tommy McFly, who is a PenFed partner, the Tommy Show, he told me he had the incredible experience of watching a transplant surgery.
He did.
I would love to do that if it's ever an opportunity, because I think, obviously we can't shoot it unless the family agrees. I don't know what that protocol, that's a separate conversation offline. But I think the more people who know how seamless the process is, the better. We are their sets of eyes and ears. So say I'm under anesthesia, I'm on the table, what happens next? How long?
So, I mean, first of all, I have to say, hopefully it is a seamless process because we did 110 living donor donations last year and transplants. So we do a very high volume, and I feel like that's very good for patients and very good for our center.
You have a great gig,
we got
Dr.
it down
Jen.
to a system. So the surgery we do laparoscopically. So if you've met someone who had it done 15 years ago, 20 years ago, they may have a
big
huge
scar.
incision. We end up with an incision about this big. About 6 centimeters, because we got to get the kidney out, right? We can't smush it in the process. So 6 centimeter incision, and then a couple of other very tiny incisions that we put the tools in. The surgery usually takes about 3 or 4 hours, and then the vast majority of people go home the next day. They wake up with a little pain, a little bloating, lasts a couple of days. By 1 week, you feel much better. By 2 weeks, almost back to normal. And
have you considered being a donor?
I have considered it, and you know, one of my
But then
biggest
who would do the
problems
surgery,
is
right?
that I don't think my department wants to give me a month off. I'm pretty confident I'll do it at some point.
Oh,
Right.
wonderful.
Right.
I think that when I see people recover remarkably well from the surgery.
Yes, they do.
You know, of course, I can't say it's 100%. Some people feel fatigue for a little while. There's little things that happen, but overall, people do incredibly well.
We want to move toward wrapping this great conversation up. Thank you both so much.
Sure.
Any final words? Anything that you feel that really was your turning point? What could be the turning point? When you go and speak to these audiences, what is it that will resonate the most with this audience?
Well, I think information is power, and I think you have to be informed. And I think you have to, like, when you hear these myths, like, really, if there's just even a doubt, go to sources so that you can find the facts. That to me is what's important, is that you feel comfortable with your decision, share your decision, get the facts, and then if something changes in your life, either you're a donor or a recipient, share it with your community, as John shared his story and what we're doing today, because we're spending our time, this very short period of our day, hoping to save some lives today. So registerme.org and save a life.
How long ago was your surgery?
8 years ago. It was right when the National Registry was being formed, so I went through a Hopkins patient.
And you have felt great ever since?
I don't even remember. Like, I'm a donor family advocate. I work with donor families, and if I go to an event, some days I leave not even telling anybody I'm a living donor. I don't always disclose it because that's not really, sometimes my job is just to be there to support the family.
But seeing how passionate and energetic you are,
Right.
certainly you are a walking billboard for donations.
thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Before we turn to you, Dr. Jen, I want to turn back to my colleagues. Shauna McNally, Tamara Moeller, thank you so much for keeping track of questions and checking out the myths. Anything else, Shauna, you'd like to add?
Just one thing, John's father, David, David Hochstein, just wrote on Facebook, "Thank you all for being here today. I'm truly humbled to be part of the PenFed family, and a big thank you to Lisa and Dr. Jen for sharing their expertise."
Yeah, and thank you to the Hochstein family as well as Christopher Brazel's family, because it was amazing to witness these two families coming together. And at the very least, I know they'll be sharing holiday cards and hopefully keeping up with each other's lives. Dr. Jen, last word to you.
I also believe knowledge is power, but that's for the patients especially. So I know this is many people are watching this from all around, but in DC we have a very large African American population, and kidney disease is very prevalent in that population. But they also have less access to education and health care. And so I think that's one of our main goals, is to spread information. That's why I go to these churches and temples, so that people understand the options that are available to them. And we want people to talk about their disease. People keep it inside a lot, and you don't have to go and ask someone for a kidney, because that's a big ask, and we actually call our lecture is actually titled The Big Ask. You don't have to do that, but if you talk about what's going on with you, people are very surprised to see who comes out of the woodwork and who decides that they might actually want to donate. And I just encourage people, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. And if you're interested at all, like you said, there's no commitment whatsoever, but you can come in and learn about the process and then consider if it might be the right thing for you.
Thank you both so much. I also would be remiss if I didn't thank our incredible crew at PenFed Digital that helped produce the stories. We have Brian Burdett, John Moger, Chris Mullen. Again, special thanks to Shauna McNally, Tamara Moeller, and Julie Myers, who happens to be off today. I know what I'm going to be talking about at the dinner table tonight in my house. Please consider it yourself. Again, thank you so much for joining us, and feel free to jump online, ask any questions. I'm hoping you can both check it out. And sometimes these things live for a couple of weeks online, so please keep tabs on the questions coming in. But anyway, thanks for joining us. Have a great, great day.